Hey everybody, today my audience is people that are trying to contribute to the Zulip server, the Zulip backend by writing Python code. If you are going to contribute any Python code to Zulip, you're going to be required for good reason to write tests that prove that your code does what it expects to do. And these tests accomplish a lot of things. Like first of all, they prevent bugs. And second of all, they express your intention. So the tests themselves are sort of a documentation of how the system works. And this is sort of more meta, but like just the process of writing the test will help you to understand the problem that you're trying to solve better. But like one of the tricky things about writing tests is that you might understand things completely on a conceptual level, but you're just going to like run into these like sort of mechanical nuisances where like you know that in order to test some function you need to create a user, but you don't know how to create a user or like just like you literally just don't know the API, like you totally understand it conceptually. So just a little under 2 years ago I wrote this file called testexample.py, and it's like literally 515 lines of code, and it's something that you can sit down and you can just like read it for about an hour. And after reading this, every time you go to write a test, first of all, this example test is going to cover like about 80% of the testing paradigms that you will ever need in writing a Zulip test. And second of all, you'll be able to like come back to it if you just like forget like really simple idioms. Like just give a quick example. Like if you need an example user, you can always just come back to testexample.py, see the test basic user stuff class, and just like read it and see, okay, well if I want a regular member, then I should create Hamlet as the example user. If I want a realm administrator, I'll create Iago, and if I want a guest, I'll create Polonius. And hopefully I'll come back to this particular example in a little more detail, but I just want to like give you a high level kind of bird's eye view of what this testexample.py covers. So we have all these imports at the top. We have like the idea of creating a really basic assertion, 7 times 6 equals 42. We have this notion of creating users. We have this notion of testing a very like simple library, very simple library functions like is administrator role or do change user role. And then you get into like more full stack kind of stuff where like you're actually like you have a URL and you actually like simulate the client talking to the server with this client get helper, which is very similar to Django. And then let's see what else. Yeah, then you can also like learn how to test a post. So if you're writing a Python backend method that supports that interfaces with HTTP with like the post verb, this test client post is like the basic template for what you're going to want to do in your test. And you can see here that it's like you're basically calling client posts, but there's like a few minor nuances. So when you read this code, when you set aside the hour or 2 hours or 3 hours or however long it takes you to read test example, after you've done that process, any feature that you want to add to the Python backend that requires a test, which is basically every feature, you'll be able to have this sort of mental framework on how to do it. So we also have tests on being able to create users. We get into like some technical details on like tornado redirects. There are all these helpers related to streams. Like almost everything that happens in Zulip is message related, and a lot of messages. Every message is either a direct / personal message to like just another user, or it's a message sent to a stream. And if you're watching this video, you probably already know that a stream in Zulip is just the same concept as a channel and like most other chat products. So you need to be able to understand like not only on a conceptual level how streams work in Zulip, but also like on a mechanical level, like how to subscribe a user to a stream using Zulip test case. Um, okay, and then there are all these message helpers. So like in your test, if you're testing anything that's like specifically related to messages, like you want to know how to send a message to a stream, and that method is just called send stream message. But you just want to be able to like come back to test example.py, look at this example, and this example gives you a template of how to write like probably more complicated tests, but it'll allow you to focus on really testing the concepts that were introduced by your code, and you don't have to worry about like how do I figure out how to get like from a message get the topic name or get the display recipient. um yeah, and then like this is like, you know, it is going to take you like probably like an hour or two to like get through this, but you're going to learn so many like important concepts about how Zulip works. This particular class here is called test query counts. And I mean, I hate to read, I hate to just like read stuff to you that you can read yourself. But you know, it says it's a common pitfall to accidentally perform database queries in a loop due to lazy evaluation of foreign keys. So we use the assert database query count context manager to ensure our query count is predictable. And like the actual way to express that in a test, it's like really quite concise. But if you were to never read this file, then you might like either end up reinventing that wheel or just like not knowing that this testing technique is a common idiom within Zulip. Going further down, what does this say? Yeah, it is a common case where some functions that we test rely on a certain settings value. So this gets into the idea. This isn't a Zulip specific concept. I wish I had kind of mentioned this earlier. Like all of Zulip's backend tests like follow the same kind of paradigm as like most other major Python systems, particularly Python systems that are written in Django. Now, this particular thing here is not actually Django's. No, it is Django specific. If you want to like override a particular Django setting, then you can use this with self settings. And I'm not going to explain every detail of the code to you guys here. What I'm really just trying to promote the idea that you take some time and you read this. And I don't expect you when you read this code the first time to like completely understand, you know, every detail of it. That would take more than an hour or more than 2 hours. But to get the idea of like where the complexity is conceptually, and also just like learn like sort of just absorb like all these like very common idioms in Zulip tests. So like you can call client get, you can call assert and success response, and I'm pretty sure a certain success response just comes directly from Django. But even if it doesn't, it's like you learn these idioms. And then down here, like by line 426, and we're almost done, you get into mocking. And like mocking is a whole deep category. And if you don't know what mocking is, like I would recommend like going to some other, YouTube video or Google something that you want to read to learn what mocking is. But even if you come to the Zulip project understanding what mocking is, I think it will be helpful for you to see an example of how we use mocking in Zulip. So let's see where it actually, yeah, so like down here, we say with mock.patch, and again, I don't think that's anything Zulip specific. I apologize if I'm misremembering anything here, but I'm pretty sure that that's just like the native way that you patch objects in Python. It's not even a Django thing, it's just a Python thing. But what this code is saying, it's using a Python context manager. It's saying we're going to patch this observer actions message edit time now function in a way that with a sort of stub function that actually just returns the value time beyond edit limit, which is defined up here. And then we run the tests using those. And again, I'm kind of being very hand wavy about how mocking works, but the more important message is that to you is that if you understand how mocking works, you're still going to need to know like how does Zulip do mocking, and this is the file that you read. You just read test example. So I'm going to go back up. I think I promised to kind of go a little bit deeper on how you create users, because it is amazing. Like there are obviously like certain parts of the code base, the backend code base that add tons of value where you're building up functions that aren't doing anything specific to a user. But 7 times out of 10, like your tests are going to test some Zulip functionality that sort of just naturally involves creating a user. And if I go back to this test basic user stuff, yeah, I kind of skimmed over this earlier, but like Zulip comes with these built-in users. You can call example user to get Hamlet, Iago, Polonius, Cordelia. There are a few others, and if you look at some of the other Zulip test code, you'll kind of pick up that these are all Shakespeare characters. But the built-in Shakespeare characters, they come with different roles. So, for example, Hamlet is just a member, and I don't say that explicitly about Cordelia, but she is also just a member. Whereas Iago is a realm administrator. So Iago has more power than the other Shakespeare characters, whereas Polonius is just a guest. So Polonius is going to be more restricted in what he can do than the other Shakespeare characters. And if you're ever, it's important just to like know who, like especially Hamlet and Cordelia. You're going to see Hamlet and Cordelia just littered all over the test. And if you're testing something that doesn't require you to know like all the nuances of user permissions, then you'll either use Hamlet or you'll use Cordelia. But if you're testing something that's like permissions related, often like the template of a test for anything permission related is that you'll create Hamlet with self-example user Hamlet, and you'll create Iago with self-example user Iago, and you'll write one test that asserts that Iago can do something, and then the other test would be that Hamlet can't do something because it requires, like administrator privileges or permissions. But I really want to hammer home the idea that this example Python test is something where you can sit down, read it for an hour, and you're going to pick up all these really useful idioms for testing Zulip. And then obviously your journey won't stop there. Like you will also like look at all these, you can go into the test directory. Obviously, like if you're working on a feature related to like let's pick like bots. Okay, you're working on a feature related to bots. Then you want to read the bots tests, and it's almost 1,800 lines of code. But you'll at least want to like skim the bots code to get the general template of how things work. But before you do anything, I can't emphasize this enough. It's worthwhile just to spend however long it takes you to read through. My computer's being so slow. There it goes. To read through testexample.py. So I hope this helps. I hope that you enjoy contributing to the Zulip server, and I hope you appreciate the importance of tests, because it's something that's been a huge part of the project's success. Thanks for listening.